Right. Well, here you go. So this is my great friend Christian here. And Christian, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Pleasure to meet everyone or to speak to everyone. I'm born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a professional basketball player on a mission to create change in this world. I'm a man of God, first and foremost. That's what I should have led with. But I'm a lover of all people, and I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm honored to have this dialogue.
Well, thank you for your time, Christian. I really want to talk to you about how your mindset has changed over time. Now that we've grown a little bit, um,
hmm
I'm really interested in knowing a little bit about your psychology in middle school, high school, and undergrad. What were your priorities maybe in middle school? What was driving you? How does that relate maybe to some of my students? And what were you aiming for at that point? What was your why?
Great question. I was always a visionary. I always believed beyond what I may have saw in the physical. So I always was a dreamer. I dreamed really big. I didn't believe in limits or limitations. And my why is to serve. I know that we answer to a higher calling, which is God. And I know a lot of times in the physical world, we can forget that or we can be kind of distracted. But I discovered my why through understanding what God has called for me in my life, and is to obviously chase my dreams, but to also make an impact to others because that's the greatest success to me, is making an impact in serving.
Okay. I think that's a great answer. But how has your why changed from middle school to now?
Great question. I would say it's changed only in the lens of dreaming. I dream even bigger now. Now that I realize that the only limits that exist are the ones that I place on myself. So I believe that as I've grown older in age, my mind has only gotten younger because I've educated it and I read a lot of books and I do a lot of meditation and I read a lot. I mean, I'm sorry, pray a lot. So it's changed in the sense of believing in my inner power even more.
Hmm. I like that. I think that that's pretty great. When you were young and people
Mhm.
asked you, what did you want to do with your life, or what was your idea for a career? How did that answer change from middle school to high school into your undergrad?
Great question. I honestly don't remember too much. I just remember I think there's a bit of programming, and I want to kind of not go off script completely, but growing up, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, like I may have stated earlier. In the inner cities of America, you can kind of be programmed to have a certain vision for your life.
Okay,
So for
what was that
me,
like?
it started off with basketball. Basketball was my escape. It was very therapeutic for me. It was a place where I had peace. It was where I was able to enjoy myself and make friends and build community. Now, as I've gotten older, I realize that I'm more than basketball. So I would just say to be mindful that you are aware of what your identity is outside of what you do. So when
Hmm.
I was younger, when I was asked what I wanted to do, I said the NBA, but I also said that I wanted to make a change in the world. I wanted to be more like God.
Was there ever a point where the second part of that vision or that
Mm.
dream, being more like God or making that change was sort of realized inside of you, where you realized like maybe there's more to this than just pursuing the NBA?
Oh, absolutely. And I even know that to this day, even as I'm that much closer to accomplishing the goal, I realized that everything isn't as it's portrayed to be.
Mhm.
And I study a lot of human consciousness, and I'm into neuroscience and neuroplasticity. I'm into the brain. I'm just super fascinated with us as beings, spiritual beings. And I realized that the answers that we seek are within. So what we desire also desires us, but we must first transform ourselves within to attract the reality that we want to create. It's nothing outside of us, so we don't have to chase it. It'll just, it'll be
Okay.
in due time. Hope I answered your question.
I think so. I think so. So let's talk about middle school you. What was middle school you like? Do you remember?
Absolutely, very adventurous. My first love was skateboarding. I love to skateboard. I admire those guys a lot because of the creativity and the talent that it takes to do that. Kick flips and grinding on rails and all those different types of things.
And
I rode a lot
bravery.
of bikes. Yeah, for sure. A lot of fearlessness. There was a guy actually, his name was Rob Dyrdek. He had Fantasy Factory. You may know. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but when I saw that show, it unlocked levels in my mind of like, wow, anything is possible. You can be a kid in this life and be super successful in doing it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
All if you listen to your own intuition. So. As a kid, I was adventurous.
Okay. And when you came into high school and you had more responsibility, you had I guess a more complicated social life too. How did you
Mhm.
change or did you change?
I would say that I changed to an extent. I would say that I was very mindful of the company that I kept. So I would make sure that I was either around the right people or I was isolated within myself, making sure that I kept my head on straight and I was going down the right path, which is the righteous path. Um, but I always had my dream, which was basketball. And the NBA for me means never be average. It's not just about putting a ball in a basket. It's about being able to inspire the next generation or the kid out there who has a dream that's within. And people may not, understand or believe in it, but in due time, if you hold on to your belief and you continue to work hard, it'll manifest in the material world. So,
I love that. That's beautiful. Let's go ahead and move on. So you go from high school. It's a proud moment at your graduation.
mhm.
Um, and it's a little scary because there's a big jump that you take. You either jump into the adult world, into the work world, or you go into college. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what was that jump like for you? What are some of the things that really helped you, and what are some of the things that sort of maybe hindered you?
This is very powerful that you ask. So, grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, like I touched on earlier, but I ended up transferring from Ohio to a school in Maryland, which is called Flowers, which is where I went to high school.
Mhm.
Once I was able to go to college when I moved to Arizona, it completely changed my life. The law of exposure is everything. I grew up seeing certain things that I don't believe, children should be exposed to. When I went to Arizona, I saw a new quality of life. I saw the way people, the way they worked out or their energy or their aura or how positive they may have been. And it really unlocked levels in my brain to understand, like, wow, this is what health and wellness truly is. This is what it means to be a spiritual, godly person. So
Mm.
going to Arizona in college really changed my life.
Do you think going to a Christian university helped with that?
1000%.
Okay.
Without question.
And what sort of shaped your choice for your major?
Honestly, I only went to school because I wanted to play basketball. And it was always just something, I definitely value education, but now as I'm older, I wish that I would have studied either gone for psychology or studied neuroscience or something along those lines. But at
Mhm.
the time it was more so just for basketball. But I do plan to go back to school to get my degree. I want to go to like Harvard or Stanford. I
Okay.
definitely will. I'm super excited about that.
And you're aiming to study something like psychology in Harvard or Stanford?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or human consciousness or something in the neuroscience field for sure.
Do you feel like you might be able to strengthen your relationship with God by better understanding yourself?
1000% because we are created in his image.
Okay, awesome. I love that. I really do. So you get to college and remind me, what were you studying again?
Business and sports management.
Okay, business and sports management. So you're kind of on track in your
Mhm.
education to get into the NBA. You thought that
Mhm.
it would help you out. Was there ever a plan B?
Never. And here's why. My personal belief is that plan B distracts from plan A. Now, obviously, I think you should make the right decisions. You should definitely value your education and take it seriously and be grateful that you have the privilege to pursue that and have that because
Mhm.
it is a blessing. But I also believe that you have to listen to the call of your soul. Whatever you believe truly deep within, you can have. Because Albert Einstein has a powerful quote. He says, "The imagination is a preview of life's coming attractions." And sometimes we can be so distracted from the external stimuli that we forget to listen to the call within. So I would just say plan A has always been plan A, and that's why it's happening because I never quit.
I love that. So I for the audience, I went to school with Christian. I actually had the luxury of being able to dorm with him for a year. And I saw Christian go through many different seasons and you had a tough moment, or I'd say a tough maybe a month or so where
Hmm.
you were faced with this internal struggle.
Hmm.
What sort of philosophy helped you to get through that rough patch?
It's a great question because I'm going to answer that, but I want to say that before I answer it. I think that in this world we should talk more about struggles than we do success because if you don't, you have to overcome the struggle to get to the success. But there's a quote by a Stoic philosopher. His name is Zeno. He says, in order to overcome the world, you must first overcome yourself. So a lot of times the anxieties or the hardships that we go through in life, or sometimes it's within our own doing. So what I was doing was I would feed self-doubt, I would feed negative thoughts instead of starving my demons and feeding my spirit, so to say. So My whole story, to answer your question, is all about overcoming. And if you continue to stay diligent and gritty in doing that, you can literally, conquer the world.
What are some practical things that you could do that you would maybe advise some of my students who struggle with anxiety or doubt?
Meditation, prayer, being in your word in your Bible, surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are on a positive path and who understand the internal battle. For me personally, meditation really changed my life. Meditation changes the gray matter in your brain. It literally changes your biology. Meditation is a spiritual practice that has gone on for thousands of years. And there are MRI scans that show the more you meditate, you can alleviate. So I would say start with meditation and prayer for sure.
Okay.
I could go down a rabbit hole with that, but those are the two I'm gonna say.
Okay,
That's a
and
good
those
question.
are good. They definitely can go hand in hand. Now, this is a problem that I've seen a lot of my students struggle with sometimes is they have a friend who doesn't necessarily have the positive energy. Now,
Mm.
sometimes people they fall into a negative place when they're experiencing hardships. How do you walk that line between trying to be a friend to that person and then protecting yourself? At which point do you sort of like wash your hands like Pilate and divert course and no longer walk with that person who might be dragging you down?
Absolutely, that's a great question. You have some really good questions, man. You have to be the light in this world. That's what God calls us to be and to be set apart. So if you realize, there's a saying, you can lead the horse to the lake, but you can't force him to drink,
Yeah.
right? You can want to help people all day long, but if they're not willing to help themselves, and you just have to be the leader and show by example how things are supposed to be done. Because byproduct of that is that people are going to see what you're doing and how it's working for you, and they're going to follow in your footsteps.
I like that. I do. Okay, we're gonna move on just a little bit. Um, so I want to focus a little bit more on more of the struggle. Were there any rude awakenings that you faced either in undergrad or afterwards that you think are worth sharing? Some hard lessons that you learned, some tough pills to swallow. What obstacles have you faced?
We could have a whole lecture on the obstacles that I face, but I'll say this: life is full of obstacles, and it's guaranteed. It talks about it in the Bible how trials and tribulations are here, present on this planet. And in life, it's not about what happens to you; it's about how you choose to respond. That's the main thing that I've learned throughout my journey. So I would just say, when anyone who may be listening to this, whenever you go through something, understand that you have the power to overcome it. It'll take time. You have to have patience, but understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to keep going.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And looking back on it, do you regret going into your undergrad, or would you do it again, or what would you change?
I don't regret it. I would change being more intentional with what I decided to study or major in.
Mhm.
I think I was just young. I wanted to get out of the city that I was in. Um, I would have gotten more involved in the community, gotten more involved in school. I would have done more community work or gone on mission trips or done more things of service and not made my life so much about myself.
Mm.
Because I think that distracts from the greater purpose is when you're focused on me, 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 me.
So
So,
why not make it about yourself? Because if you spend time doing things for yourself and you care about you first, isn't that kind of like a road to happiness when you're fed and rested
right,
and you have your leisure? Why
absolutely.
why why do why sorry, why not do that instead of simply giving of yourself and maybe depleting yourself? Can you talk a little bit about the irony of how giving to others is something that kind of fills you up?
Absolutely. I believe it's a form of brainwash. In today's society, not even in just today's world, in the world in general, you're fed the idea of, now don't get me wrong, let me be careful with my words. You have to work hard and make something of yourself so you can be successful, so you can be able to help people in your family, things of that sort. I think there needs to be a balance because
Mhm.
if not, you're going to burn out and you're going to lose yourself. Um, and to answer your question, I would say to focus more on giving because the more you give, the more you receive. And that doesn't necessarily mean monetary. That can be with your words. That can be through a thoughtful conversation or a hug or a kind gesture, whatever it might be. And that's what success is to me, is service to the world. Because a lot of times through indoctrination or through programming, we're taught chase, 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 money, 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 or this, and that. But money's not enough to satisfy the soul. At the end of the day, we're living to satisfy God and what He wants us to do here on this earth. So I would just say have a balance.
Okay.
Work hard, but also be a servant.
How do you know where the balance is? I'm sure it's different for everybody, but how have you know
Yeah.
what the balance is like?
I always listen to um my consciousness. So the inner voice that's inside, your consciousness is like the authentic voice of God. That's how He communicates to us. We may not be able to see Him when we may not be able to see our prayers going to heaven, or we may not be able to see when our Wi-Fi is connected to, a satellite. But then we can have, like, we may not be able to see things visibly, but the unseen are the most powerful things. So I'm saying that to say, by having the spirit of discernment, or by having discernment and by understanding to listen to the voice within, the positive voice within.
Hmm. Okay. And what is discernment? How would you describe that in your words?
It's the inner feeling that you have. So most people don't know this, but your gut is like your first brain. So like that saying, people say, follow your gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what that feeling is. So the voice that says, hey, like maybe you should work out today, or maybe you should write that paper, or maybe you should help a friend in need, or maybe you should help the lady bring her groceries to her car, whatever it may be. That's that gut feeling to do something positive in this life and to be able to make that change.
Okay. I love that. So we're going to backtrack a little bit. We're going to talk about your
Mhm.
faith. I know it's been woven into everything, but where was God in middle school Christian's life?
Wow, this is a very powerful question for me because being from Cleveland, it's not the easiest place to grow up. And I always felt like I was protected. My mother always told me ever since I was a kid, I was asked about God and the planets and the stars and all these different things. I always felt protected ever since I was a child. I always knew that there was something greater than myself that my tiny little brain couldn't comprehend. Um, I would also say that he guided me through everything, even when I didn't understand, because I lost friends. They passed away at a young age, or as we went to high school, whatever it might have been. And I realized it's like, wow, God, you have protected me from all of that. So when you see a lot of evil, then that's when you know there's a lot of good, that there's God.
Okay. Awesome. And then how did your relationship with God change when you got into high school and you grew in intellect and understanding and you began to comprehend some of the more abstract and complicated things?
I love this question too. It made me realize even more, excuse me, that we fight against spiritual warfare, like it talks about in the Bible in Ephesians 6, verse 12. As I grew older, I understood as I started to study human psychology and human behavior and what nothing originates from nothing. So the planet isn't here by accident. It's because God created it. If the sun were any closer to Earth, we would all burn alive. But God has created such a beautiful and intellectual, strategic plan to place it where it is. Everything correlates and connects so perfectly and divinely. And as I grew older, when I went to high school, everything started to make sense. This world doesn't make sense without God. There's no way it could ever operate. The trees contribute to our oxygen. The bees contribute to our ecosystem. It gets so deep, and it's like, wow, God, you are such a amazing and beautiful. I mean, the way that your thoughts are not our thoughts, like it talks about in the Bible. So I could answer that question with more depth, but I'll just say, as I grew older and as I started to learn more, I realized that He's the answer to all things.
Okay. And I think that does relate to your why. And it seems like you're very far along in your understanding of it. It really makes my heart happy to see that. But what sort of fruit do you want to bear? It seems like you've tied your why to the fruit that you can bear in this life. And so if you could choose, what sort of fruit would you bear with the time that you have, this breath?
I love this. The fruit that I want to bear. I would say more selflessness. I would say um, detachment, the law of detachment. I would say detaching my things from the having godly ambition over worldly ambition,
Hmm.
doing things for the kingdom, doing things for the spiritual realm, doing things to please God because when I pass and leave this earth one day, I want Him to say that He's proud of me. That's all that truly matters to me. So that's what I wanna leave behind. That's how I wanna um leave from this earth.
Okay, good. Now, I'm hoping that you might have something, some nugget of wisdom for the poor middle school student who's watching this because he has to
Absolutely.
and does not want to. What would you say to that person who would just rather grind out another round of Fortnite right now or do anything but think about the future? Because that was me when I was in middle school. You couldn't
Absolutely.
think
Absolutely.
about 5 years from now. What would you say to that person? What advice would you give them?
I would say have the attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for people like you and I and for God who take the time to want to pour into other souls because we know the things that this young person may come up against. So I would say to understand that it could save them years and years of pain, years and years of mistakes, or I would simply just say, don't take it for granted because not everybody has this privilege. And I promise you, Fortnite is not that important.
I love it. I love it. I guess one final question. One final question. What do you think is the biggest obstacle that faces the generation below us right now? And what do you think the solution is?
Mm, social media. I think social media is the new Satan. I think technology and AI and the way that the world is being corrupted through these things. Not that you can't use technology for good, but I see that it's starting to be used more for bad. So I would say the way to overcome it is to learn how to be bored. I was listening to a Harvard professor talk about this. He stated that sometimes you have to literally learn to just sit in silence, whether you're meditating or you're praying, whatever that looks like, because there's all this cheap dopamine, video games,
Hmm.
Instagram, TikTok, all these different things. Like, so I would literally just say, that the answers are already within, but you have to be disciplined because discipline creates freedom and discipline creates your destiny. So,
All right, I love that. I think that's an excellent message, and that's a good place to leave it off.
sure.
Christian, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate the gift that you've given me and everyone else who will see this.
Likewise, I'm truly grateful. Thank you for having me. And may God bless everyone that's going to listen to this.
Thank you, sir. God bless you as well. And I hope to talk to you sometime soon.
Absolutely, brother.